Welcome back to another episode of NFT Catcher Podcast. We'd like to remind everybody that nothing on the show is meant as financial advice, and to please do your own research. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Now the subject is NFTs.
They're known as non-fungible tokens, or NFTs.
NFTs are exploding in popularity.
This is a technology that will forever change the way people interact.
So it is happening whether you understand it and like it or not.
This phenomenon is moving. The digital...
You have now joined Jenny from the Blockchain and Michael Keene on the NFT Catcher Podcast.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NFT Catcher Podcast with me, Jenny from the Blockchain, and my co-host, Michael Keene. Today, we have a special guest joining us for our Sunday recap. We have Bunchu, who is a repeat guest, actually, and he's going to be joining us on today's episode. And Michael and him are going to get into a lot of AI talk. So if you're into AI, this is the episode for you. But Bunchu, welcome to the show.
GM, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here and excited to nerd out with Michael for sure.
We certainly are. This is selfish of me to have you on because I just want to ask you a bunch of questions about where I'm getting stuck. So I have an hour of your time to pick your brain.
That's what it's really about. You just wanted
it is. That's pretty much. Yeah. I'm joking. I said before we got on that like I want to text him like constantly. Like, what should I do here? What's going on here? But I really need to figure this stuff out by myself. And you've been a couple steps ahead of me this whole time. So real inspiration. I'm excited to chat it up.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah, man. Hell yeah. Jenny, we teased last week, though, that you might have some news you said you might share. I don't even know what it is. Do you want to share, or right now, okay, let's wait another week?
I need another rain check, you guys.
Okay, but yeah. It sounds like you're a lot of moving parts going on for sure. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And for those listening, I did just move to Missouri. So, yeah, I'm just getting settled into the new place. I was telling Michael and Bunchu, I don't even know where my mic and headphones are. So if I sound different, then that's probably why. But yeah.
Yep. We got you.
Hello. Oh,
She's
okay.
Coming in from Missouri is like, they're just getting Wi-Fi in Missouri. It's crazy. The whole.
Yeah, actually, my connection is a bit suspicious.
The whole state, they're
anyway.
Just literally getting it. She's on AOL dial-up right now. All right, we're good. So you can hear us. You're gonna love all the stuff we talk about. But so last time Bunchu was on, we were talking about Forum 3, we were talking about Starbucks, we were talking about all that, and that did what it wait, no, we had you on after that. We talked about that was the kind of have you been on twice before?
No, this is my
once.
second time.
Okay.
I think we talked about Starbucks last time.
And we did, but it was like a post-mortem, I think.
It was still happening.
Was it
still
happening?
in full force at that point,
good.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should have gone back and listened, but either way, what do you have going on now? What's your thing now? You got so much going on, but I want to let you describe it.
Yeah, it's funny. So my journey has been interesting in the sense that I had been in, the crypto NFT, blockchain, Web3 space in some form or another since 2017. And that led to kind of jumping in full time in 2021 and, with the stuff with Forum 3 and all of that and doing Starbucks. And when Starbucks launched, it was November of 2022, late November, early December 2022. And that was right when ChatGPT launched, like literally that week. The same week Starbucks launched, ChatGPT came online, and that was a whole entry into a new chapter, right? So we did all this work, launched Starbucks. We're running the community, doing all the day-to-day kind of consulting and stuff on the Odyssey project. Then ChatGPT came online, Midjourney started becoming really popular all at that same time. And it was really right at that moment that I had this really interesting insight, which was we were running the community. So we had a Discord of 20,000 or so people, and we were, engaging in there every day. And what I started seeing around that time was just all of this crazy like user generated content, user generated content that was being made with AI tools. Like we would have people come in and be dropping their, Mid-Journey made Starbucks siren of the day. And that was kind of really when I first opened my eyes to this stuff, because I'd used it for like writing blog posts and stuff a couple months prior to that, but nothing major. And I actually kind of put off using ChatGPT at first because I thought it was kind of a fad. And this was the time that was like, oh, there's something going on here. And so that's what sent me down the AI rabbit hole. So really that beginning of 2023, late 2022, up until now, I've really just been obsessed with all of the things going on in AI. And even from a Forum 3 standpoint, we went on to launch a couple platforms and products in the AI space. One was called Hive 3. I would say it's like a decentralized community-based creative agency. So we would work with brands using these tools that would kind of empower all these creators to do creative brand briefs. And we launched new product campaigns, and we worked with people like Crumble Cookie and Nature's Path, which is a big food brand. And then we also launched a
that was
marketing.
Great, by the way. I remember Hive 3. I was in there from the beginning, and people were making awesome stuff with kind of rudimentary tools at this point.
Totally at that time, right?
Right. Compared to what they are now, like they'd be blowing your mind, I'm sure. But
yeah,
people got really creative in that. People got really creative. That was fun.
That was kind of the rabbit hole I went down, right? So then Forum 3 kind of pivoted not out of Web3, but the focus became on creating kind of in the AI space. And then recently, I have actually parted ways with Forum 3 as of about a month ago. And so now I'm out doing my own thing, just kind of living in my AI Web3 world, trying to figure out where I'm going to land next. So it's a really interesting Venn diagram of skills that I have accumulated over the last 7 years. But it's been a ton of fun. And like this whole space just like lights my brain on fire every single day.
Hell yeah. No, it's ever changing. There's so much going on. It is extremely fun. And when you get when you're working on something and you get it to click, like it's a great feeling. Let's talk about your podcast is FireBrain, right? Is that what you call the podcast? The 10-minute every day, or is that Daily Ember? Which is the one that the automatic one? Yeah,
FireBrain's kind of the brand, I would say. So that's kind of what I've done as a brand. And what I call the daily one is the Daily Ember. And
that's what I thought.
Yeah, and what that is it's a 10 to 15 minute daily podcast about, all of the latest happenings in AI, from the day prior or whatever, what's going on, news of the day kind of stuff. And the cool thing is it's completely 100% end-to-end, totally automated and created by AI. So it was, I as soon as I knew that these tools were available back in that time that I was just speaking about, I wanted to do this. And my first attempt at it, the tools just weren't good enough, right? Like that you could clone your voice, but it sounded very robotic, and you weren't fooling anybody, and nobody would want to listen to it, right? And fast forward 18 months to your point of like how fast stuff changes in this space is like all of the tools have evolved exponentially. There's new things coming out every day, and now what wasn't possible just 18 months ago now is almost indistinguishable from my real voice and what I sound like right now. And so I've been able to kind of create this really wild set of prompts and workflows and all of this stuff to kind of recreate what I think, my voice is in terms of how I speak to people or how I write or how I would sound on a podcast. And then it, takes in the news of the day, and I choose what topics to cover, and it goes out and does the rest all the way out until like publishing it. Right. And so what I end up with every day is a 10-minute podcast of me talking about the, virtual me, I guess, AI me, talking about the news of the day in AI. And I went as far as to try to do it with, it wasn't impossible to do with a solo, just me. It was very difficult to do when I tried to do it with my podcast that I do with a co-host. So, but I did that, and I actually created a two-way conversation version that does
No shit.
Yeah, I don't know if you've. I'll send you a link.
Oh, I haven't heard it yet. Yeah.
We've been putting out the podcast I do with Chamber is called the Mid-Mic Crisis, and I've been putting out it's called the Mid-Mic Daily Bite. Same thing.
I saw you guys had like a 5-minute podcast.
That's
on
AI,
Spotify.
dude.
That's what that is. Oh, I gotta listen to that.
Those are all
good for you, bro. That's awesome.
The craziest part about that was trying to get it to sound natural, conversational. You know what I mean? Because it was like my first attempt at it was like these big, long blocks of text that each of us are reading back and forth. I'm like, sounds terrible. And over a lot of iterations and scripting work and actually learning how to do all of this stuff, I was able to get it, pretty decent. We talk about all of that later, but those are the two of versions that I've put out, which is, it's been really fun to do. I fool my own family. They don't even know it's me, not me, until I tell them.
That really, they don't even know it's not. Yeah, I fooled Jenny really bad. She had no idea the one that I sent wasn't me.
That is not true. I knew for Michael's, I knew right away. But do your guests know, like, or are you also like, let me just see if they can even tell?
They're not guest podcasts, so that's the thing, right? So they're those podcasts are just solo, like me
like
reading or not reading the news, but like as if I were writing an essay or a paper, right? Or a blog post on the daily news of the day, right? So they're not actual guest podcasts. However, I could easily do something like that, I would think now, because you could literally recreate your own self with something like a Hey Gen. And I did that the other day to try to mess around with it. And you could tell it's not me talking like this, like literally the video, but it's getting better and better and better every single day.
My podcast, like the commercial that I made, I thought sounded really good. I sent that over to you, Joe. I thought that sounded really good.
I thought it did too. The thing with the ad reads, why I think it's such an awesome use case, right? It's like, how many times have you done an ad read where you're doing 5 takes because you stumble over a word or you do it with X, Y, and Z? And if you train your voice with like the 11 Labs professional version, it gets your cadence down. It gets really good. And
it's really good, man. I love it. I love it.
And so for something like an ad read where it's a script you're reading, right? Like it's perfect every time, and I think that's same with like, if I were delivering a 10 to 15 minute podcast every day, it would take me 5 to 10 takes just to get through reading a script, right? I would mess up. I can barely read and write now. So
if you needed it to be perfect, it'd be impossible to go 10 minutes. For sure.
Exactly. It's hard. But anyway, No,
that's really impressive. And so all this stuff is done with, like, I don't know if anybody knows what make.com is. I didn't know what it was before 2 months ago. I learned about it from you. That's why I say you're such an inspiration, really. Like, a lot of the stuff, like, I cloned my voice because I saw you do it. And I was like, hell yeah, that's with 11 Labs. Like, anybody can go do it. I had another buddy do it. Ron Jordan did it just this week, and he's got his own now. It's like, it's super simple, but you just have to know to do it and give them whatever it is, the $18 a month.
Yeah, I think the thing with all of the crazy AI stuff going on right now is if you're following it at all, it all just feels like you're drinking through a fire hose, right? There's so many new tools. There's so many new demos every day. You don't, and so you kind of get stuck with like, all right, I know all of this stuff exists. I've seen people do these crazy demos, but like, how do I actually practically implement this stuff in a way that helps me be more productive or helps me multiply, the amount of content I could put out a week or any of that stuff, right? And I think that's where a lot of people who are just getting into it are stuck, right? Because it feels surreal, like, oh, it's supposed to just be this magic wand, but like, how do you actually implement it? And I think that's where what motivated me to do all this stuff. So like I always wanted to do the podcast stuff. So I just went out and figured out how to do it. Right. But I'm not a coder. So that's another part of it. Right. Like I've never really written a line of code in my life. And this is part of what like excited me so much about the AI stuff to begin with is it took me from 0 to 1 on so many different things. Right. Like I'm a creative person, but I don't have a artistic drawing or painting bone in my body, but I've got all these ideas that now I can put out into the world with things like Midjourney or Runway or whatever. And so now similarly with coding.
Speaking of that, you kind of have a style of your art, and you've developed it over maybe the last like 6 months. It popped up, and now you kind of use that same. Do you have is there like a certain framework do you use when you make is it Dolly or is it Midjourney? What do you?
I'm actually using Midjourney mostly for that stuff now. Okay. But yeah, it's the same thing, right? It's like, okay, I've explored a bunch of stuff and I feel like I've found what I like and what fits me. And
it's unique.
That's just
and
like,
and when someone sees that character and that style, they know it's your art. Like
right, and I think that's really interesting about there's this whole argument in about like is AI art real art, right? And it's like, well, what you just said is what you would say about a normal like a traditional art form, right? It's like you have your own style. It's hard to recreate, and it's an iterative process, right? I think there's two main things there. It's like there's this connotation that people are like, oh, I can just put anything into Midjourney and I get something beautiful out. I'm an artist. And I think that's what people have struggles with when they talk about, people calling themselves AI artists. But there's so much more to it than that, right? To actually get something that is unique or repeatable or all of those things, right?
Or even like, so you could put something in Midjourney and get something beautiful out of it. Absolutely. It's the same as somebody playing, a Van Halen solo on the guitar. They could play it just like Eddie Van Halen, but they aren't the amazing artist.
Correct.
So like you can absolutely create art and create magic. And it is art. Like them doing that is art, but that doesn't make them Leonardo da Vinci, or that doesn't make them, Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix, because they can copy that.
Right, but all of a sudden, if you write your own solo riff inspired by Van Halen, well, there's something different there, right? And you've done work on top of something that exists or that you were inspired by.
If you make something that nobody else has, right? Exactly, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, the same thing with me with coding, right? Like I've tried to teach myself how to code. I've countless times in my life. Yeah. Just never clicks for me ever. Yep. And now with these tools, I can build stuff. And like the ability to build stuff is just like, I mean, it's an unlock, I think, for everybody. And I think in 5 years, everybody will be building their own tools and things and apps and all of this stuff because it's just going to be the barrier to entry is going to be so low. And everybody has this creative bone in them, right? Or like has something that you use every day. You're like, man, I wish it did this instead. And all of a sudden you're just going to kind of be able to flip a magic wand and create it yourself. Yeah. And it's kind of wild. Like once you realize you can do it, the sky's the limit really. And then it's just you're only limited by your own creativity because you can brute force your way through a lot of this stuff with zero experience now. And then the best part is it's not cheating because you learn along the way, right? Like I'm learning things about coding and programming and all this stuff that I never really knew or understood before, right? So it's like, it's really just augmenting the agency you already have within you. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's having an expert over your shoulder to help you along the way. Like as you're going, hey, I need to, I'm stuck here. Here's a piece of code for you. Like instead of you : / parentheses and trying to get everything right and looking in a book to try and figure it out. Like, yeah. And it's unbelievable. We definitely got into, like, I got into AI right when GPT dropped as well. And we've been talking about it on the podcast. You definitely like went way deeper than me, and I always kept following, and then this stuff just started to like that. This make.com stuff has really got me like so excited about the possibilities. I made one for Andy where I still have to give it a little love because I've been working on some other stuff. But so basically, he can just drop the audio file into a form, into an Airtable form. It takes the audio file, like the raw from this, he just drops it in and it transcribes it, gives them show notes. I'm eventually going to have it like have me read, like on today's episode, we're going to get into, and just like have it do it automatically. And like this, and it comes right back to him by email, a bunch of tweets, things like that. I'm going to have that all automated. All he's got to do, because Andy does so much for us. Like we really appreciate, as the producer, but that'd be awesome to make his life easy, get beautiful show notes, a little newsletter, bunch of tweets, the transcription, quotes, whatever we need, like all automatically. And him dropping the thing and triggers it. He has to do nothing else. He did do it last week and there was an error, but
well, you'll get it. I mean, that's kind of the fun, right?
Well, what error I get, actually, I gotta put other modules, because I get the error on ChatGPT maybe 10% of the time that the prompt goes against their policy. Do you get that?
Sons of bitches.
You get that or not really? It's just like a simple.
Yes, and it's because like it depends on what you're doing. I'm sure you're generating images. That one is more strict.
Yeah,
is that what you're doing?
But there's we are. It's generating images is when that happens. But there is a module I think you could put before it to like test it to see if it's going to get. I guess I need to put that in every one. Have you seen that module?
No, I haven't seen that one.
If you click on GPT and scroll down, it's one of the ones. Let me see if I can.
But now you've got stuff like Flux, right? Where
I need to use Flux.
Open source. So you could do that.
Really?
You could just swap a couple API request ones in there instead of using Dolly, and you will never have that problem again.
Let's actually. Does Flux have a module in?
No, you gotta know how to use like the HTTP requests and but as long as they have an API, you can figure it out, right?
Let's switch over to Flux, because that's actually very hot recently. I've seen all kinds of really cool stuff. Is that the one where you cloned your face and now it does all the images? Yeah. So what's up with Flux? Let's break into that.
Well, have you used Grok inside X at all?
Not really to create images. I've asked a couple simple questions. I also saw a tweet one time that says, "You all know your Grok prompts are public, right?" So like, I don't even know if are they? Like, I don't know. So I'm afraid to like do like weird shit. Because you know what I mean? Because like, I don't know. Somebody was like, "Y'all know your Grok things are public." So like,
that's funny.
I'm sticking with GPT, which will only release it on the dark web in a couple years when they're hacked. I also thought about, on another side note, I thought about what happens when 11 Labs gets hacked and they just have all our cloned voices.
Oh yeah, I mean, your voice is out there.
My voice is out there.
I mean, you've got hundreds of hours.
Yeah, I've got right. I know. I thought that's the thought that just came into my head. I was like, if they
got hundreds of hours of your voice on the internet, you're toast anyway. Yeah. Anybody can mimic you whenever they want. It does. They don't need your 11 Labs voice clone. You know what I mean?
Facts. And is that voice clone? Can you take that voice clone? Do you own it, or do they? It's gatekept.
No, they own it. But there's open source versions that you can do that just aren't. They're not quite as good. 11 Labs is definitely the best one on the market, but there are open source ones that you could do something similar, and then you would own that file, right? So
I mean, I'm cool with it. You just have to keep paying them at least a minimum a month, apparently.
Yeah. And I mean, they make it easy, right? So like, I do the whole podcast through 11 Labs in terms of sending them the script. Yeah, right, exactly. So that's super easy.
Super easy.
But Flux, so the reason I brought up Grok.
Let's go. Yeah.
Well, the reason I brought up Grok was because the whole thing when Grok launched was people were generating images and they were kind of unhinged in terms of what you could create, right? So they did not have the problem you just mentioned with Dolly, and they wouldn't reject anything, right? So you got to see people's weird side of what they were creating.
Right, like
and
Joe
posting.
Biden in a bikini on the beach or whatever. Yeah, I
right.
remember seeing that
Right,
kind of
right,
stuff.
right.
Yeah.
And but the point was the image model that they're using is Flux. So they piped in Flux. And so that was kind of everybody's first, real, like they dropped the same week, right? So everybody went nuts over Flux because a lot of these open sourced image models have just not been as good of quality, right? So like Stable Diffusion is probably the other most popular open source one. And it's just not up to, the Mid-Journey or like any of these other, popular image models, the Leonardos of the world, all of that kind of stuff. They're just not up to the same par. So, but Flux was very, 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 very good and open source. So you saw a lot of people kind of gravitate towards that. And what it means when you have something like this that's open source is you can kind of fine tune them, right? So you've got kind of this master model and you can use a technique that's called LoRa, LoRa. And that basically, what that is essentially a fine tuning of the image model. And when you're fine tuning it on something in an image model, you can do anything, right? So you could fine tune it on an object, an art style, a person, a character, a setting, right? Anything. So that's why you saw a lot of people go, oh, I'm going to train this on my image, right? So like you had a lot of people who were like, oh, I'm going to put my face into all of these images. And that's what I did. I thought it was really fun. And I literally just sat here in this view that you're looking at me now in front of my camera. I took 50 pictures, just click, and I just like did a, quick scan of my face in 50 images. And it was really, really, really easy to do this. It took me less than an hour. And it only took me that long because it took 38 minutes to train the model. And then, now you have this version that you own, right? So it's like your model weights of what you trained it on, and you can run that through the Flux model. And it's got like, whatever you name the images is your trigger word. So it's like, you just have to use Joe at the beach drinking a martini, and you get this picture of me drinking a martini on the beach, right? And so it was really fun to do.
All right, I need this. This needs to be my next thing now.
It's fun, dude, and it takes like no time. It really was really easy. The most time was gathering the images, and then But
so how do you use where, like, what platform do you use Flux again on? How's it work?
There's a couple places you can use it. Where I did it is a platform called Replicate, and Replicate is super cool. It's kind of like this spot where you can use a lot of these open source models and fine tune them, and then they have their own API, so then you can go and call them, right? So I actually am able to use Flux now in my automations because you're just calling the Replicate API in one of your modules, and you're using that. So like I have a LinkedIn one that I use now that like takes an article, runs it through a prompt, and then it creates the post and the image is from Flux, and it's super cool. And then, so you could use Replicate. There's another one called, I forget the name of it, Flora or something like that, that a lot of people are using. But it's really any of these places that host open source models are, you'll be able to use Flux on. You could also use it on Hugging Face, which is kind of like the big hub for all of the AI machine learning models and stuff.
I've heard of that one. I haven't really used that. I've mostly used like the out of the box, like, the big brand GPT, Claude. I've been using Perplexity recently, which is really cool. And
if you haven't used AI search yet, that would be, so like one of the things I was talking about earlier is like, how do you practically start using this stuff? And I think one of these like very easy beginner tips is like, use something like a Perplexity.ai for a week and replace all of your Google searches with it, right? And just see how it changes the way that you search things or take in information, right? It's just a wildly different experience. And it's just a better user experience for most things as well, right? Where when you Google something now, it's such a pain in the butt. You just get 10 blue links back. You got to sift through 4 sponsored posts first, and then you got to go through each one and see if it has the thing you have. And now it's all like SEO optimized. So you search for a recipe and you got to read through, 1,000-word blog post on eggs first to get to the damn recipe. And if you use Perplexity, it'll tell you how to do it, where all the resources are. It'll show you videos. It'll do all that stuff. And it's right there in front of you. So I think AI search is a really interesting place to start if you're new to this stuff as well. And, if you've already used like the chat GPTs of the world and things like that.
That's great. That's free, right?
Perplexity is free. They have a paid version as well, but you just need the free version. Perplexity is free. And then OpenAI is coming out with Search GPT, which is basically, their version of that, which I actually have early access to. It's very good as well. Pretty much right now, I would say it's on par with what Perplexity does. Perplexity is probably even just a little better still, but yeah.
Do you have the GPT that you can talk to and it like talks back however you tell it?
Not yet. Not the advanced voice mode. I'm like dying for that to come out because I use the regular voice mode literally every day. And I actually use it. I haven't used it at all. I use the regular voice mode every day, multiple times a day. And believe it or not, it's because I use it with my son, who's 3.5. And
no shit.
Like and this is another thing that I do a lot, which is I use it for stuff with my kids and parenting and relationship stuff and all of that because, my kid was not, he wasn't listening. So he's having trouble listening. So one day I had Claude write him a letter from Spider-Man and I wrote it out and sent it to him in the mail. We did, but every day with the voice mode, he we'll create stories. And so we'll be like, hey, what do you want to hear a story about? And he'll, say what he wants to hear. The thing will tell him the story. And at the end, it creates him a picture about the story with Dolly. And he just like loves it. Cause it's like his stories on demand all the time. And he like begs me to do it. And I actually have to tell him no because he wants to do it too much. But, just, cool ways to do stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. I create images and stories with my kids all the time. Like we'll create a bedtime story about them, and then we'll have them create images for it, like make an image from that book. Like it's really awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome
and then
stuff.
Except we have it just read the story to him because again, I can barely read.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, kids, time to go to bed. My clone's gonna read you a bedtime story.
Exactly. That's funny.
Circle back real quick to your podcast. Because this is one question that I actually had. How do you find that you get the best news for 24 hours? Do you get it with an RSS feed? Do you get it via Perplexity? Like, how do you think you dial in the best news in your niche?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it is actually somewhat less about the news stories themselves and more about the prompts that go into dissecting the information in the articles, right? So obviously selecting the articles is important, right? Because you want to obviously make topics people want to listen to. But, when you're going through this process of automating that entire thing, right? Like where I'm clicking a button and I'm getting a script back and I want to make sure that script is good content and then like the prompts have to be really, really good. And so
it's always the prompts. I don't mean to cut you off. Like the prompt is everything. And then there's an issue where sometimes like it'll randomly give you an output that'll have like numbers and like weird things in it or dashes that it never has usually. You know what I mean? Like every now and then it'll spit something like that out. But go ahead.
And so like that, and then you'll just error out and that won't basically throw that one out. But I have this workflow that gives me in every 24 hours it runs, it gives me the latest 30 or so, whatever news articles
Where do you grab them from? Is that
so
an
it's
RSS feed?
just, yeah, it's just rss.app, I
That
think.
app.
So
Yep.
yeah, it's rss.app, and you can literally filter or create an article feed for any topic, right? So it doesn't have to be AI if you're into real estate.
Totally.
And if you're into real estate in, Albuquerque, New Mexico, you can filter your RSS feed for articles in Albuquerque, New Mexico, right? Or local news and whatever. And so what I have that do is, so it pulls that list of articles every day, and then it runs every article through a workflow that dissects all of the information in it. And to the point where, so I want to do like as little work as possible for me to sit down in the morning and say, here are the top stories I should cover. So like one of the prompts that I have that it runs through is it like judges potentially how interesting or viral that story or article will be. And it gives me a score and an icon on a scale of 1 to 10. And so I sit down every morning and I'm like, well, I don't want any 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s. I only want, 7s and above. So that automatically filters out, half of those articles. And then I can focus on, which ones I think are most interesting. And then I send them all off to the rest of the workflow from there. And so, but my point about the prompts was, so it takes the article, it passes it first through Perplexity, like we were just talking about. So it passes it through Perplexity and actually does like additional research on the topic, because I don't want it to just give me stuff that's in the article, because whoever wrote it could be biased and all these things. And then that would influence how your script come out. So I run it through Perplexity, and it does a whole bunch of like additional research. And then it goes through, 4 or 5 GPT assistants that all do a very specific task. Like one writes just the like SEO friendly headline. One does the virality score thing. One does an overview. One actually has a prompt that's just about like, what kind of wisdom could you get out of this? What are the insights in the articles? What are the quotes and recommendations and all of these things? And that's how you're able to build such I would say like a robust and comprehensive script from it, because you've extracted all of these things out of the article and concepts that are beyond just, the little blurb or overview that most people probably stop at in terms of what their prompts do. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I just learned a lot there, because I actually tried to do one that just started at Perplexity, and it would be like, give me the last 24 hours of NFT news and send it through. It didn't do that amazing. I got stuff that was older. I got stuff that was even incorrect, like the year would be off or something. I don't know if you've seen stuff like that. I think starting with the RSS feed and then going through Perplexity is a really nice way to.
Yeah, one of the other things I do is, if you don't want to just take the whole RSS feed, literally you could go and filter Google News for your niche, and you can just select the articles that you think are interesting, and you can drop them. I drop them in that way.
Drop them in it, right?
Drop them single link, and it still does the entire.
So you can say, hey,
workflow.
I want a 10-minute
more
script
manual,
about
right?
these 4 articles. Right, for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
it's more manual because you have to put the articles through the workflow.
And you should have it set up to do both ways. If you're going to create that, you might as well have it set up right, so it's ready to do either way.
Right, because like you said, sometimes the article errors out or whatever, and I have to find. But I like the topic, so I have to go find like an adjacent article and do it manually, where I don't want to run it through the entire workflow of 30 articles.
It'll never be full. I mean, I guess eventually it'll be fully automatic, but there's definitely a lot like if you're doing it, you have to be ready for errors.
Yeah, and there's still part of,
and then what'll happen is, GPT 5.0 will come out, and you have to change every module to 5.0, and that'll probably mess up all the modules.
Oh
too.
yeah, and then where we're headed is that you're going to have agents that will do this, right? And so each of those modules will be part of an agent workflow, right? And you're just going to have this army of agents doing things for you on the internet all day while you know,
posting shit, right? Liking stuff for you, retweeting. It's going to become such a.
I mean, and it's not that far away. I mean, we're talking about like 6 months. 12 months.
How is social media how's it gonna keep its value when it just becomes robots everywhere? Like everything's
it's a great question.
Robot.
I think written content is gonna go to zero. Right. Like I think the value of written content is going to go to zero. So like part of why I wanted to do the podcast and part of why I'm working on like video flows and things like that is because I think the internet's just gonna get flooded with like cheap written content, and people aren't going to want to consume that way anymore.
It's just going to be an infinite scroll of junk mail.
Yeah, so it's gonna. Yes.
I mean, even like on TikTok now, you'll scroll up to one and it'll be a voice and it'll be like, "Have you ever?" But you can tell it's just like this AI voice put over somebody's video that they're just automatically popping out there.
Yeah. But like, how do you? The funny thing is, like, there's going to be ways to differentiate yourself in that atmosphere. And it's going to be like you said, it all boils down to your prompts. It's going to be the people that can prompt better than others, right? Or put that kind of extra effort in. And then I think like stuff like this is going to have more value than it ever has before, right? Because people will be seeking that human connection. Whether that's
you're talking about podcasts when you say stuff like this,
videos.
I mean, I think podcasts are media, like podcasts, YouTube, the traditional companies. They're hanging on by a thread, but
I
all
think
the popular
communities, like I mean, with the Web3 space, we are obviously big believers in community. So I think communities will be one of the big winners in an AI world as well.
Yeah. Now, speaking of community, to talk about how awesome you are, and one of the reasons, we had John, but you have a community that you've started to build. Is it called School? Is that website?
So School is the platform. Yeah. So if you haven't used School, School is, I don't even know how to really describe it. It's just this really cool platform that hosts kind of communities that are educational, I would say, that aim to be educational. Like you can host kind of courses or learning modules on there, but it's also a place where you can interact via like almost like Reddit style forum type posts and things like that. So I thought it was an awesome platform. It's cool because
there's a small monthly charge, right? What is it?
To host your own? Yeah.
For you. I'm saying for your community. I'm going to talk about your community. Is yours still free?
Mine's totally free.
Oh, I thought, okay. Cause it's awesome. Like anybody that's hearing what we're talking about here with the make.com and the Airtable, you can go on there, and Joe has an hour-long video. He's got multiple videos, but that walks you through him building these automations he's talking about. It takes a little while to learn it, but if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I could really use an automation for something that they talked about really triggered in my head, you can go to join his community. And if you're still taking people, because I remember you were going to cap it at 100, but I don't know. So whatever the situation, but if you can get in there, like it is awesome. You have really nice people. Once a week, there's a video call that I try and get on as much as I can, where you can really learn and people are talking and asking questions. But if this is interesting to you, and it should be, because it is incredible once you realize what you can do with it, like Joe's community is a great place to start.
Yeah, you can find it. It's just it's actually SKOOL school.
Right.
So it's school.com/FireBrain. And it's a free community that I'm doing.
Yeah.
There's
Hop in there. In there.
Yeah, there's just 140 people in there. And I'm just sharing the stuff that I'm doing and learning.
Your videos, your templates, like it's very valuable. There's people that are charging. We found that same guy. I know you're in his community. It's Stephen Pope.
Yeah.
His name. He's really good too. He's got a lot of videos on YouTube. He's been around for a long time. This guy's got 1,700 people in his, and it costs $100 a month.
Yeah, man.
Again, I'm sure some of them got in early for different price, but I can do a little math. Like, you're like, that's why you started. You're like, I'm going to build one of these up.
I
You know,
mean,
that's-
maybe at some point.
Yeah, no, of
but,
course. Yeah.
at the moment, it's really just so like again, my motivation for it was I had,
I was thinking about doing my own, by the way, with the amount he's got. But
yeah,
go
like
ahead.
I mean, you could,
Yeah, no,
and
I
it's
don't want to.
it's
I don't want
easy.
to follow your exact path. I'll try to.
But like for me, it took me from 0 to 1 on so many things that I was like, and
Yeah.
I'm a true like believer that this is the biggest platform shift that we are ever going to witness in our lifetime. And it's like, inventing fire, right? Like you're going to see
That's changing. It's
things
changing everything. Yeah, there's things I
Yes.
could never do that I do all the time now. that
And
I
I'm
could
just
never
like,
do.
people need to know about it and learn about it like ASAP, or you're going to feel like you're so far behind. Like I'm truly a believer in like an AI world is a world of total abundance for everybody if we do it right. And but if you do it wrong, it's just going to enhance the haves and have-nots.
If we do it wrong, there will just be like AI drones everywhere shooting people dead if they cross the street wrong.
Yeah, well, I'll be paper clips, that whole
Right.
theory, the paperclip theory, right? Like but
What's the paperclip theory?
it's basically like if you gave an AI the directive that it's got to make as many paper clips as possible, that eventually it would make decisions that would make humans extinct, and everything would just be paper clips.
Right. They would just be,
Essentially
it
it.
would be factories
Yes.
of paper clips.
Right. And so, it would extinctify the human race,
Uh-huh.
right? So, I mean, there are plenty of AI doomers that think that we're still, this
Well, we're
still
doing
ends.
it ourselves with the whole the population birth
I
rate
just
or
saw
whatever,
like
right?
for the first time ever, we're not replacing ourselves, which is really interesting as well.
Yeah, for sure.
That probably keeps happening in a world with more and more AI too. So,
Elon's been talking about that for 10 years. They called him crazy.
I know.
When he started
I know.
bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how many kids has he got? 13.
I
or
know. He
something?
got like 20 kids. He got more than
I only
that,
have
think.
two. It's funny. I saw that
no.
story and I said to my wife, I was like, "Oh, should we have one more?" She's like, "Not a fucking chance."
Oh my God.
But anyway, so my point was like, I'm doing it because I feel like everybody needs to be learning about this stuff, and it's helped me so much, and I just think it's going to keep happening. And it's hard. There's a learning curve to it, right? Like there's a learning curve.
Yeah.
It always feels like you're behind, even if you are spending a lot of time on it. And so I just figured I would put up a place where I just share all the stuff that I'm doing and learning. And I also think like most people, I know this is true for me, like to learn from people that are, 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, right? That not, I don't need to be learning from an MIT, professor. I need to be learning from somebody that's aspirational to me that I can catch up to and surpass, you know what I mean? Like, so I am not an expert, that's for sure.
Nah, you are, man. You're definitely an expert. Steve says that when you come on. You also have, Joe's got a great spot now on Coffee with Captain once a week. It's like Tuesdays at 9:30.
Thursday mornings.
Thursday morning, 9:00, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great spot if you just want to hear him chop it up about the AI things. You've been doing some awesome stuff there. Let's Jenny, you good over there? You having fun?
I was just gonna say, I think we might have turned Jenny into a paperclip.
I'm just here. I feel like a listener just tuning in this episode. So yeah,
sorry, Jenny.
I'm just listening in. It's all very interesting stuff, and I like hearing you guys chat about it. I'm not too well versed in AI world, so
has any of this hit you like, oh wow, I could really use that, or a business I know could really use that? Is anything that we've said?
I like when I eventually have kids, like I thought that was interesting that you guys use AI like with your kids and for reading them bedtime stories and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, that really makes me think, So yeah, honestly, that I started thinking about, and also I started thinking about your guys' kids, and I'm like, wow, they're growing up with AI now and they're so young, like they're going to be AI experts, you know.
I thought about that tonight. I was like, my daughter, I was like, say what you want the picture to be. And I hit the button and she says it in there. 15 seconds later, there's like the exact picture she asked for with her name on the hoodie and everything. And it's like, she's just going to think that's normal. Like that's just like normal life.
It is going to be normal.
Right. Yeah. And it's not even now. When she's in 20 years from now, it's going to be in your glasses or your contact, and you're possibly just going to have to think the image you want, and it'll just boop. Wow, you know.
Yep, it's going to be weird. And I mean, I think about this all the time. Like, what do I even like? How do you educate your kids in a world that's going to be so different than it is right now by the time they're, you know, college age, right? Like that, the whole education system is going to need to have some kind of overhaul with this stuff. And it's funny. It's like right now it's like this inflection point where some people are adopting it and some people are just totally banning it. And it's going to be interesting to see because there's no regulation really on it yet. So everybody's got to make their own decisions. And it's really interesting to see, like, people are in the education system, people are afraid that people are using it for cheating, right? But like, when you think about it beyond, you know, ChatGPT for Spark Notes and think of it more as like, well, you now have something that can be literally a personalized tutor for every single kid, no matter their learning style, right? And like, I mean, hyper personalized to the way they learn best, the things they struggle with, the context of what they know and what they're good at and what they aren't, and how can, you know, you can be building personalized lesson plans and all this stuff. And it just seems so obvious. You
basically have 30 teachers in every class.
And it seems so obvious that it should be adopted and not shunned. Right, and everybody's just too worried about, you know, using it to plagiarize an essay, right? And it's like there's so much more than that.
Yeah, exactly. It could. That's even an extreme example. I mean, it's almost like schools would be banning calculators when they first started coming out.
Totally.
Like, nah, man. Like,
well, they did used to tell us, you know, it's not like you're always going to have a calculator in your pocket, you know?
Right.
Like, you know, you're right. I now have an army of robots.
How did every teacher say that? It must have been in like a movie or something.
Yeah.
You know, I think about sometimes, how did like sayings even spread back in the day, like before the internet? How did things make it like, because like the people of the same age know all the same things, like all around the country. It's always weird. I don't know if that makes sense what I just said.
No, totally. It's like they were all at, you know, the teachers conference and somebody keynoted it, and
they all just started saying it.
Yeah. It
probably was in a movie or something. Things like that. Like they make it into pop culture. Like there's things that we all think that are true just because it was like in a popular movie is not even close to being true. Like there's lots of things like that. Yeah.
But yeah, man, the education stuff's really interesting to me too. It's like, it's kind of wild.
Education, healthcare.
That too. Yeah.
Any other rabbit holes you want to go down? I definitely have a few more questions, but what's interesting to you right now? You working on anything that you wanted to
I just think like, I think the ability to enhance so like, I've been saying this since we were doing a lot of Web3 stuff, which is like, or when I really got into like the consumer brand loyalty stuff, and the insights were like, hey, every brand is a content brand now, right? Like every business is a content business. Every person is a media company. And like, that's the way the world is going. And so when you have to have that perspective to, you know, make money or, you know, have a business that succeeds or be a brand that is top of people's mind, it's like this content hamster wheel is so difficult, right? You have to be everywhere all at once, all the time, producing, and it's hard and it takes a long time. And it's like, so for me, I think these tools as a way to augment and repurpose the content you're making is super interesting to me, right? So like, that's why I'm doing the podcast as like this almost demonstration, right? But also a tool of like, people listen to it because it's good, but it's also a demonstration of what's possible, right? But it's like, you even just said it when you're talking about what you did for your producer, Andy, where it's like, okay, well, we did this hour-long podcast, and now you can repurpose that hour-long piece of content into 100 pieces of content when maybe before you could only get to 10 things a week, right? Or whatever. And so how do you use these tools to do things like that? That's what's super interesting to me, that I'm kind of working on right now, just because I'm living it, right? It's like, okay, I'm not at a company anymore. I'm kind of on my own. So I have to raise awareness about myself, which is a weird thing. And it feels really weird to me because I've never really done that before. Mm-hmm. So like, okay, how do I do that most effectively with the best quality that I can? You know what I mean? So that's where I've kind of spent a lot of time. But the other thing is like that I'm super getting into is just I think it's going to be really easy for people to build their own stuff in the future. And so I just keep going down these rabbit holes of like, what are the new tools that are allowing people to do that? And I think like one of the easy ones people could go look at is like Claude. If you've used ChatGPT, but you haven't used Claude, go check out Claude. There's a free version that has, they just launched this feature that I'm going to mention here, which is the Claude artifacts stuff. Have you played with that yet, Michael?
No, I have not. And I definitely have meant to play with Claude because you've talked about it a bunch. And then even the artifacts, remind me what that is.
So the artifacts are super interesting. Like, how you use ChatGPT to code stuff, right? Yep. And it's like, right. Okay, now I've got this script and I don't actually even know if it's going to work or what it does. Well, Claude has like put this cool UI thing on it where it actually produces it and runs it right in tandem with what you're doing. So like, if you're like, hey, I wanted to code this or I want to create this simple game of Snake where the apple is, or where he's trying to eat an apple emoji, it'll write you the code, but on the split screen, it'll actually show you the game and the game works. And so you can know if it works, right? So like you could say you have a spreadsheet and you're like, turn this spreadsheet into a dashboard for me, right? And it's like, okay, then it creates this interactive dashboard and it works, right? And so it's like, when you see that for the first time, you're like, oh, holy shit, I could build stuff. And then again, it just like opens this gateway in your brain. You're like, oh, well, if I can build anything, what would I build? Or for anybody or myself? And it just unlocks this creative muscle. And I think that's really cool to chase because I think all of this building stuff is going to become democratized. And I think, where we were talking before, where you run the risk of all text content being this fire hose of junk food, I think on the flip side, with everybody being able to build something, you're going to get some really, 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 really cool creations out of that. And from people that that never thought they could do stuff like that before. And I think that's really interesting to me too. So
you're going to have somebody come up with something that gets 5 million users in 3 days out of nowhere, out of their basement. Yeah,
100%. Like these tools are going to allow for a one-person billion-dollar company at some point. I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Why wouldn't it? I could do. Let's do it.
There you go.
Two-person billion-dollar.
There you go, baby.
One last. Well, actually, two last things I want to get into. Have you looked at the Appify at all? I've seen a lot of people messing with that Appify where you can like scrape things.
Yes. So Appify is cool. I actually use it in my workflow to do guest research. So if I was having a podcast guest, I did an episode with a gentleman named Robert Scoble, who's a big, long career in tech, literally like 30-year career. And so I wanted to ask a bunch of good questions. So I built a workflow that I would literally fill out a form that goes to my Airtable, and it had, his Twitter URL, his LinkedIn URL, his website, his newsletter, whatever. And then each one went to an Appify model or a module that scraped it all and then sent it to GPT module that helped me build the questions off of that. And then that gets you like 80-90% there. And that's what I used Apify for. However,
That is awesome. I got to do that for ours.
that's a really cool one. Because it's just a good reason to be scraping that stuff, right? So, but I think like, one of the things that I'm realizing while I'm doing this is all of these things are just built off of a bunch of free APIs, right? So like what I'm trying to teach myself now is how to.
It's not all free. I'm paying like $5 and
No,
$10
my
for
point
everybody.
is, we're paying for stuff now that we can replace with free APIs. So my new hotness is trying to replace a bunch of these apps with my own versions of stuff.
Wow.
So I'm trying to actually learn how to build your own API endpoints of this stuff, because what happens with, when you have all these, automations and you're calling all these APIs that cost money, it racks up really quickly, right? So you have to really have a use case for it to want to do it. But my point was like, I think there's enough free stuff out there with like web scrapers and all of that kind of stuff that you could build your own versions of these, which is kind of what I'm trying to explore now. But that's what I use Apify for, actually.
Cool. And then I know I asked you like probably about a week ago, but auto posting stuff. What's Metro Cool? What do you do with? How's that work? Do you have to like? How do you get stuff to like schedule and post it? Do you do it manually, or what's the easiest way you found to? Once you have your content, say it's an image, like an Instagram story or whatever.
Yeah, so Instagram, you can literally post directly from the make.com module. Most of them you can. The one I found that you can't, you're supposed to be able to, but I haven't figured out how to get it to work, is Twitter, which is a pain in the ass.
Yep.
So you have to use, at least right now, it feels like I have to use one of these other sites, which is
for Instagram, you have to get them to send you that letter to your house with the code, right?
Gosh, I don't remember if I had to do that or not. I guess I did.
Sure. You had to fill out the thing through Facebook that was like publishing.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So that was a pain in the ass. But like LinkedIn, you can go directly to.
You can do pretty easily. That's good.
Yeah. The other thing you could do that Claude will do for you is you could build yourself a Chrome extension. And so like you could literally, you would probably be into this one. I have one. Did you see the LinkedIn one I did?
I didn't watch it. I think I was going to watch it, and you said you had to re-record it or something.
Yeah. Okay. So
I lost track, but I need to.
The LinkedIn one is really interesting because you can post it. So like you can create a Chrome extension that Claude will help you build in like 15 minutes, and you build in the webhook into the Chrome extension. So it sends all the data directly to your webhook, which is tied to Make, and you can do anything from there. So like the LinkedIn one that I have, literally I could be reading an article, find something interesting, I highlight it, I right click my text, and that's what sends to the module, and it creates me a LinkedIn post, an image, and then directly post to LinkedIn.
Wow.
So like if you go look at my LinkedIn,
what's your LinkedIn?
It's just,
Joe O'Rourke.
Well, I think it's Joseph, because it's so formal on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Yeah. I still don't have an actual photo of me. It's my, PFP or whatever. But
I'm so behind on
my last like 10 LinkedIn posts were done this way, and they're not bad. So I literally write, and I actually have been doing it from the articles I'm using for the podcast, right? Because I'm reading them, I'm going through them anyway. And I find them interesting. So I'm like, okay, boom, click. And so it sends it right from the webhook to make.com, and then you can do anything with it once it's there.
That's dope. I like that a lot. And these are AI images? Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, those are Flux.
They're Flux.
And they're pretty good.
Yeah. Although 2 in a row have the same image. Something fucked up.
Did I post the same thing twice in a row?
That's messed up. Not the same thing, just the same image. Something in the workflow, bro.
There you go.
Wait, am I right? Yeah, that is. Yeah. Ooh, that's messed up. I know it is the same thing.
Wait, which one?
The one with the computer. It's actually a crazy looking image. It's like the computer screen
You know, I might have had an error and posted it twice.
Reposted it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no,
Well,
you reposted.
Anyway.
Nice looking stuff though.
But those images are good. Like those are flux
Yeah, they're
images.
great. Now I know they're great. That strawberry's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah, man. Nah, it's taking a lot of your time. It's getting late here on Sunday night, Labor Day weekend. I could go on forever, man. You're definitely inspiring. I'm dead serious. People should absolutely check out all the cool stuff you have going on. Your podcast, Midnight Crisis, your Spot on Coffee with Captain, your school community, everything you're doing, brother. I love it. I'm going to keep up with it. It's very inspiring. Probably to a lot of people. I know it is. Yeah, man. Of course.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Jenny, sorry I took over your podcast.
Oh no, you're totally good.
This was the NFT Catcher podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been really enjoyable to listen to. And you guys, make sure you're following Bunchu on Twitter, BUNCHU BETS, if you're not already. And yeah, that concludes our special AI episode. We will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to the NFT Catcher podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new about the exciting world of NFTs. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you really love what you're hearing, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform. If you want to stay up to date with the latest news and insights from the NFT space, be sure to follow us on all the socials at NFT Catcher Pod. You can follow Jennifer at Jennifer_pseudo and Michael at NFTicket. I'm your producer, Andy, and I'm at AJC254. Our theme song's by It's Just Los. We always appreciate your feedback and support, which helps us reach more people and bring you informative and engaging content about NFTs. We look forward to bringing you more great NFT content in future episodes. Thanks for listening. Peace.